So yeah, let's get into this. You were telling me about an AI workflow you have for making the presentations. I have some other questions too, and maybe let's warm up with some questions. So I'll tell you a bit more about what is going to happen with this recording. I'm going to be quoting your insights in my chapter. It's chapter number 7 of my content SEO course for marketing ops, and the chapter is on reporting. The previous one was on measurement. So that's where quotes will be used, and then we'll have a few clips from the recording that we'll publish as a part of it all as well for marketingops.com. What we're also doing is that the company that is hiring me uh, actually acquired my domain as well, and these videos too, because I have the rights to the assets for the course. Marketingops.com got a better deal for me for that. So uh, we'll be using them for Growth X as well. That's the AI tech kind of like an expert content publisher platform slash agency. I need to figure it out when to start. So they were super interested in using the videos as well because I was telling them I have so many gems that come from these videos, and then I make notes on what the clips could be. And
Mhm.
so the expectation is that there'll be a few clips from this on LinkedIn and probably YouTube, but definitely LinkedIn.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah. So of course we can edit anything and such, and it's also just not getting published, at least not for now, like one piece of 20 or 30 minutes of the two of us talking. So it can be more spontaneous and more brainstormy than that.
Great.
Uh, so um, one one thing that's a broad question is about the current state of reporting. And I'm not going to ask you what is the current state of reporting, just in some context. And so, in my experience, it's a pretty bad state of things. So also in my experience, especially large companies are sometimes super set in their ways, and it's really
Mm,
hard to get to the person who could make the decision to change how reporting is done. What
mhm,
also happens in my experience is that a lot of reporting and analysis happens to prove that the team or the person putting together the report is doing great. And agencies are notorious for that. But I think in enterprise and also just other teams, this is very, very common that reporting is not always done to figure out what's going on and why and what we should be doing about it, and maybe what impact of that action we expect. Many times reporting is done more to just prove that we're doing great and to look good. So
mm, mhm,
in your experience, because you've been hired by many teams, large ones, medium ones, I guess, but just a variety of companies in a variety of industries, to teach them how they could present data better.
mhm.
What is usually the motivator? What is the either the tipping point or the the aha moment for them where they realize, okay, we actually need to do this a lot better?
Mm.
What gets them to take that action?
Yeah, good question. I'm not often around for when they realize they need to do things better because they call me when they've realized they need to do it better,
Mhm.
and then they seek out this kind of training. Um, but what I would say is when I ask about how that came about, what they recognize, it's almost exactly the same across every person that comes to me. I have it like as a line in a script almost because it's so common, is that the audience gets overwhelmed with too much information and they don't actually know what mattered and that there's no story. And that's maybe the most consistent complaint that I get. And, if it's an agency, they'll recognize this because their clients are complaining that they don't understand where their investment is going. And they can even be creating positive results, but if the client doesn't understand the value by understanding the story, they're going to take their investment somewhere else. So agencies especially live and die by the perception of the value they are creating for their client. So that's
Mhm.
one reason why I work with a lot of agencies who come to this realization.
Mhm.
When it comes to other brands, you know, generally it's either the leadership themselves feel completely underwhelmed or just, bored out of their minds. They see their team is struggling, trying to figure out what to present, why it matters, and they are just left uninspired. And that's a key symptom of a breakdown in communication.
Hmm. So, what are the most common job titles of the people who hire you, the people who are spearheading the need and the execution of better
Mhm.
data presentation, storytelling, data visualization? Who are what are their jobs called?
So mainly the director of awesomeness. No, I'm just totally kidding. I have a really, really awesome client base. So I love everyone who reaches out. Um, I would say it is a mix of directors or above of data analytics, data science, marketing analytics, marketing, kind of anyone that has a vested interest in understanding what the data is trying to tell us and what decisions should be made. Um, and there's also a mix of learning and development groups that come where if the employees are lucky, the company has a growth mindset. So they
Hmm.
invest in creating a team that's invested in the growth of the employees. So they will look for trainings. A lot of times people are looking for, they're creating training days like annual summits, training, special training weeks for their teams to get together and not work, but learn. So I get contacted for a lot of those as well. And those are really great because a lot of different teams will come together, maybe for the first time, and interact, but all be in a common learning experience, which is it's really fun.
Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. So get back to that storytelling part.
Mhm.
It's it was interesting to me at the beginning of my data visualization learning journey that the storytelling element is so key, and it makes perfect sense. But when people haven't immersed themselves yet, they will not always think of, probably most times people will not think of storytelling as something to use in a marketing report. But then really you kind of need to anyway, right? So um, uh, how how hard or how easy would you say it is to get a team to think in that way, to think like, okay, now we're telling a story so that it can all resonate better?
Well, the first part of it is illuminating what a story actually is. And what's funny is that we already know. So I pull from a lot of examples of Hollywood. I'm a big movie buff. I love great TV. I'm a musical theater performer. So I've always been immersed in story. And we know what they are. We're obviously engaging with stories in our personal time all the time. We're binging the latest. I just binged the latest season of Reacher, which is fun and interesting, and Game of Thrones or the Avengers movies, whatever. So we know what good stories are, but we don't actually understand the mechanics of the story. We're just we are experiencing story, but we don't know what is behind the scenes, pun intended. So one of the first things I teach is story mechanics of what's called a narrative arc. And a narrative arc is an invisible structure to a story that takes the audience on an emotional journey with the characters. And every great story has one of these. Um, some of them look at it as the hero's journey by Joseph Campbell. Others look at the three-act play. The one that I teach is based on something called the Freytag analysis, which is a 5-step arc. It's literally an arc, so it's visual. And that arc represents the emotional intensity of the point that the audience is on throughout what you're saying. And most practitioners have no concept what that is. They've never seen it before. And they don't know that it's something that they can bring into their insights. They often sort of just put slide after slide of a conglomeration of different insights that seem related and a laundry list of statements that they make about this data, and they talk through it, and they're on that slide for 20 minutes, and then they move on. But this is not how the human brain is wired to pay attention or engage with information. There's no emotion behind it. There are no stakes. There's no character, right? So by teaching them the narrative arc and the different roles that the hero plays, that the villain plays, the conflict, all of that, the stakes, they begin to see that they have to trigger emotions somewhere along the way in order to get an audience invested in what they're talking about if you want to inspire change. And when people talk about data storytelling, 90% of the time, what they're doing is data telling, but completely missing the story part. And that's the gap that I fill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about the potential villains in a marketing report. And I think I've thought
There
of
are
some
many.
like, yeah, like algorithm updates and such.
Yeah. Algorithm updates, new competitor on the scene. A villain can also be an internal red tape issue that you're having. It can be the fact that no one's taking action on recommendations when something's important. That can be a villain to progress, right? A villain represents really a conflict. It's any kind of problem impeding your goal or an opportunity to gain something, but there's an obstacle standing in front of the goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's easy to come up with because there's always something.
There
If you've done
is.
if you've done your analysis right, you'll find the obstacle, and now you have a bit of a story arch.
That's right.
So, yeah,
No
you were
villain,
saying,
no story.
yeah, yeah, yeah.